Good morning, and welcome back to Good Morning Tobago right here on Tobago Updates. I am your host, Shenell Felix. This morning we are continuing our conversation on all that's happening here in Tobago, and we are having that conversation with Senator Ancil Dennis, who is also the political leader of the Tobago PNM Council. Good morning and welcome back. Now, a lot has been happening, not just in Tobago, but nationally as well. And one of those things that we've seen happening recently is the state of emergency. That was announced by the government last Monday. Now, I was on TV at the time, and while being on TV, we got the notification. So that just says that it really was not something that anyone was expecting. There were conversations that there were leaks about it happening, but all in all, the public was not expecting something of this nature. But we are still questioning the effectiveness of this SOE. And the reason why is because even though that was announced, we've still seen a number of gruesome murders happening here in Trinidad and Tobago. We saw one where the attorney was killed, and now we see a student from Signal Secondary School being killed. So it just shows from all sectors of the society, whether you're a student or whether you are a high-level special investigator, that no one is being spared with the situation with crime in Trinidad and Tobago right now. So, though we mourn the loss of Attorney Hector and young persons like this young boy that got his life taken on the 3rd of January, are you in support of this SOE?
Of course. And while the SOE, as you said, took many persons by surprise, a lot of people were calling for it. Even members of the opposition were calling for an SOE. But the government, to me, always felt that it is something to be carefully considered, because when you look at the laws of Trinidad and Tobago, especially the Constitution, there are certain rights and privileges that citizens have that ought not to be infringed just like that. And therefore, very exceptional circumstances and conditions must be met in order for the government to even consider an SOE, because it's something that, of course, has to be approved by the President of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. So, based on the advice given, of course, over the years, the police felt that, they could manage the situation outside of an SOE, as difficult as it is. But given the most recent developments, the government felt that the conditions were met for us to take this difficult step at this point in time. And Trinidad and Tobago is not the only jurisdiction in the Caribbean having taken those steps. We see it in Jamaica as well, where the government has decided to use that arrangement in an effort to curb crime. Will an SOE cause all the murders, all the crime to disappear? No. Right? It will be foolish of us to have that expectation. But it is my realistic hope that through the additional powers provided to the TTPS, for example, being able to search without procuring a warrant, should allow the TTPS to at least make a significant dent, one, in the number of gang members making themselves available to be used for the purpose of terrorizing the population. I expect them to be able to put a dent in that. And I also expect them, as they have been able to do over the last couple of weeks since this has been implemented, to remove illegal, high-powered weapons from the public. And
but
so far,
persons truly
that has been done.
Safe with this SOE, seeing that people are still dying, ultimately?
Well, it depends. I mean, people feel safe for different reasons. The reason why you get up this morning and you came out your house, and and you drove your car and you came here, and the reason why we are sitting here in this open forum is because we feel safe at this present time. However, walking into Labantil, or perhaps even walking into Port of Spain, or let's look at Tobago, for example, maybe walking by a known drug block, for example, the one in Scarborough there, at 11 p.m. in the night, I'm sure you will not feel as safe. So again, the element of safety or the feeling of safety is always dependent on the specific circumstances. I've seen the Tobago Tourism Agency and the Tobago House of Assembly put out a press release that Tobago is still generally safe, right? Notwithstanding the fact that we had a record 26 murders in Tobago last year. Depending on the specific situation, it is okay to say that Tobago is still generally safe. So, yes, the situation is one that needs to be dealt with. The TTPS has ultimate responsibility, of course, for detecting crime and bringing the evidence to bear in order to have successful prosecutions and stuff. We will hope that the state of emergency will allow them to do that a bit more effectively during this period, especially targeted towards specific availability of high-powered weapons and gang members and stuff terrorizing. Because the reality is that the population of Trinidad and Tobago is 1.4 million people. And it is my view that it is only a small percentage of the population that are prepared to engage in this kind of criminal conduct. Yes, you're going to have somebody who might shoplift out of their circumstances. They're hungry, they don't have any money. They may see an opportunity to shoplift and they may do it, right? Somebody might steal a wig or something like that because they want to go to a cannibal fete. Now, that is wrong, right? But I'm still saying that I believe it is only a small percentage of the population that have made it their daily occupation to engage in criminal activity for gain, to go into people's homes and rob and even kill them just to get what they are not prepared to work legally for, right? And I'm saying if we do what is required as citizens and as members of our respective communities, because everybody has a role to play. Of course, the government ought to provide the resources and the policies, etc. The TTPS has the specific responsibility to investigate crime and to lock up people. The minister can't lock up anybody. The prime minister can't lock up anybody. So the TTPS has that specific responsibility. But guess what? That responsibility will be discharged a lot more effectively if we can have greater cooperation from the citizens. And of course, people will tell you that they don't trust the police and they're not prepared to communicate with the police. I see it differently, because there are ways for people to report suspected crime. There are ways for people to inform, as we like to call it. There are ways for people to give tips while protecting their identity.
All right. And what alternative approaches do you think the government can take to truly tackle crime? Because if even a state of an emergency is not instilling the type of fear that needs to be instilled into criminals, what other mechanisms do you suggest can be put in place?
To me, a state of emergency, the state of emergency, it is too early to draw any conclusions on the effectiveness of the state of emergency. And I don't think it's about instilling fear. I don't think the criminal element is afraid of anybody or anything. Their main objective is to do what they desire to do at the point in time, whether it's to kill somebody because they believe the person killed somebody for them, which is what you call reprisals, whether it's to kill to get money to buy a gun, or kill to get money to buy a Jordan or whatever, whether it's to snatch a chain off somebody's neck to sell it to get money to buy something. I don't think it is about instilling fear, but it is about coming to a place where step by step, one, we can reduce the number of persons making themselves available to criminal gangs and to criminality generally. That is something we like to talk about. But let's face it, let's look at the actions of the government over the last 9 years and the number of opportunities provided to young people. There are avenues available to young people. You have sporting opportunities, you have Mosporam, you have Milat, you have YTEP, you have several other programs available to young people. And most of them, let's face it, I believe most of our young people are trying to do it the honest way and the right way. Most young people are trying to make themselves available to benefit from the several opportunities afforded to them by the state. But there are a few who, unfortunately, for whatever reason, and I wouldn't get into all the reasons, I'm no criminologist or psychologist, I can only speculate. But too many of our young people are becoming willing enough to associate themselves with gangs and gang members, and to preach badness and to resort to violence. And even if we move away from the specific criminal element, let's look at the conduct of the average citizen. Too many of us are prepared to break the law, whether it be traffic regulations. We want to drive how we want to break the traffic light. Even when you look at how we interact with each other, we are quite prepared to cuss one another on Facebook, belittle one another, embarrass each other over even who we choose to get engaged to, embarrass each other because of who we choose to align with politically, cuss each other because of how we look, who fat, who might be skinny, who we find might be ugly. That is how we have chose to engage each other as a society. Go on social media any particular day, you will see people disrespecting office holders, people cussing out each other, people embarrassed. It's just a whole toxic environment. And you have young people looking on at that.
And are you
choosing to resolve
positioning
conflict
yourself in such
that
a way that you want to see a change in this toxic environment? And how do you think you could contribute to that type of change?
Well, definitely. I mean, I personally don't engage in cyberbullying, right? Of course, when it comes to the political arena, I will treat with my opponents as I see fit, but I personally don't engage in cyberbullying, right? So I believe people should be free to live their lives. People should be free to dress how they want, without others making that a topic of conversation, especially publicly. Now, of course, people gossip in their little circles and bad talk one another in the little circles, but social media has afforded us the unfortunate, well, I shouldn't even call it an opportunity, but the reality where we could get on social media, say what we want, and I hope we realize as well that there are a lot of people in this society who cannot take talk. And I'm sure there are circumstances where people have resorted to violence, people have harmed people for their mouths.
Right. And is this something that you are actively, discouraging your members from?
Well, that is not something that the PNM subscribes to, because I'm sure when you observe the PNM and how we conduct ourselves while in office, even at the national level, we were in opposition from 2010 to 2015. And if you go back in history, we in the PNM during that time never preached doom and gloom. We never consistently made statements that the country collapse and the country mash up and the people eat grass and the people suffering. We have never gone along that road. We looked at what the government was doing. We criticized what the government was doing. We offered alternative suggestions and alternative positions. And we hoped that based on that, the people will call on us again to represent them at the level of the government. Look at what is happening now. Go on any UNC page. Go on social media generally. And you will see all kinds of racial rhetoric, divisiveness, hateful. I came across a post recently. Well, I made a post a couple days ago about the UNC and how they operate. Interestingly, not too long after that, I saw a young person in his response to something that was said by a UNC operative, a known UNC operative, who said something that was totally inaccurate, but of course it was designed to incense the population. I saw a young person in his response to that making a very unfortunate statement about the Prime Minister. I would not repeat the statement, but it is my belief that the statement should have attracted police attention, and I'm hoping it did. But I would not repeat the statement. And again, the statement was in response to something said by a UNC operative, a known UNC operative, designed to incite the population, right? It is not something that we encourage. We don't practice that in the PNM. Of course, we will criticize our opponents on their record, on what they have done to in our opinion, destroy the people of Tobago and to destroy businesses in Tobago. We will criticize that. But you will never hear us calling for violence and preaching divisiveness and preaching race and that kind of stuff. There are few people within our support arrangements who will say that, yes, we can't control everything that our supporters say. But clearly, it is not a strategy of the PNM, neither at the national level or the Tobago level, to go down that particular road, because it is dangerous to our democracy. And I tend to believe that, unfortunately, we are reaping some of those seeds that have been sown. And while people may feel that doing that will give them some kind of political advantage, if in the process of you getting political advantage, you are further dividing a nation, then that is unfortunate if people believe that that's a responsible way to operate.
All right. You guys are going to take a quick break right here, and we'll be back with a lot more on this conversation. See you soon.